I'll give it a few minutes because usually people join a little bit delayed. So
Yeah.
All right, welcome to the live interview. As the founder of FarmBridge, my name is Troy. We like to host a series of interviews, interviewing people in the community that are heavily involved in working with local growers and local producers, but also really ingrained in the community and what they do, and a huge passion for food. And so I'm excited to announce today's guest, Kimberly Slaikeu, who actually is the owner of and the founder of Luxe Artisan Preserves, and has amazing quality of preserves with different herbs and everything. And so what we're going to dive into, not only about her company, but all her journey to get to this point and all the amazing things that she does behind the scenes. And so we're going to unpack that and then give you an opportunity, if you're listening in, to ask questions. And so what does it look like to run a preserves company, to run a business in the community? What does it look like to connect with people in the community? What does it look like to reach out to Kimberly on some of the other things she does potentially? And then if you are a producer or grower, what it looks like to reach out and connect with Kimberly to work with her. And so, Kimberly, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here. I'm excited.
Of course. Of course. And a little bit of context too, Kimberly and I actually met because she has a huge passion for working with local growers and local producers. So she had reached out to us, hoping to connect with some farms, and that's something I absolutely love, and I am all about helping at any point in time. So, but Kimberly, tell us a little bit about yourself. So how did the journey into food start for you, and what do you got going on in your life?
Oh, well, the journey of food started at a very early age. I mean, I've been in the kitchen since I was 6 years old. My grandmother and my mom were masters in the kitchen, and I was just alongside them. So growing up, I spent a lot of time with my grandmother that we affectionately called Big Mama, and harvesting, vegetables from our garden in the backyard and cooking them fresh or preserving them. So I learned a lot from her, throughout the years. In terms of the other side of my life, because a lot of people don't realize that I have like several different things going on. I'm in healthcare. I've been in healthcare for 25 years. I have a PhD in nursing and urban studies. So I still do a little bit of consulting on the healthcare side, but always have been a creative at heart. In terms of cooking, in terms of writing, in terms of designing. And so Luxe has given me the opportunity to have the freedom to create and imagine and create things that typically you don't have too much wiggle room in healthcare to be creative. Like people's lives are on the line, right? So
Yeah,
you need to be creative. There's a lot of protocol that you need to follow. So Luxe has been in existence, I would say probably for about 1.5 years now. But before it was a official business, I was always creating preserves and just coming up with different things. I entertain a lot. And so I would always try to think of things that I can make that would be unique to my home when people came over. And I stumbled upon making a random jam one day and people loved it. And then I just started to continue to kind of play with it. So that's how Luxe came about.
So I want to cover two areas there. So dive a little bit more into what preserves are, because I know some people eat jams, jellies, preserves. And so what is a preserve, and what preserves do you have that you create?
So I consider, because there's like a debate on how you actually define preserves. But for me, it's a classification of jams and marmalades. And so I primarily make jams. I stay away from jellies because I feel like I want to make sure that I use the fruit as much as possible. I'm not at that place where, I just want to cook a lot of fruit and then figure out how to repurpose it like into an applesauce or something like that. I mean, I could, but I just don't have time for that right now. So I stay away from things. I really like to make sure that I respect the ingredients and use them all in my profiles. So I make jams and marmalades that are infused with fresh herbs and alcohol. So those are the primary two categories. Yeah.
So share some of the herbs, because I know you're big into using herbs, I believe, in your preserves. So share some examples.
So one of the profiles that I have, that's one of the pretty popular ones, is pear preserves that I infuse with fresh rosemary. And then I finish it with a light sparkling wine and culinary gold flakes. And so that's one of the ones that I'm featuring for the holiday season on the website. I have another profile that is blackberry preserves, and I use fresh basil and apple brandy from Long Road Distillers. And so not only do I try to get my fruit and my herbs from local growers, I stick to local alcohol and libation producers as well. So Long Road Distillers is one of my top individuals that I partner with, and then Motu Voje with their sparkling wine and their Avani Supreme vodka. So I try to make sure that I stay as local as possible.
Which is incredible, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, maybe you can talk a little bit about this, but so like pulling together not only just a preserves business, but a business in general can be logistically difficult to figure out all those things. And so maybe share a little bit with the viewers what it looks like to actually create a preserves business, what the logistics are, packaging, all those type of things. Like just unpack it for us, if you don't mind.
Wow. So first of all, disclaimer, I'm still figuring it out. I feel like I don't have all of the pieces together yet. Yeah, like I'm like, man, I've been in the kitchen for a very long time, but to be in food as a business, in the food industry is definitely a different beast. So there's a lot that goes on, as you mentioned before I even sell. First of all, it's the concept. So I try to think through the ingredients that I think would pair well together and play well together when they're cooking. That's very important. And then just thinking through what I want the end experience to be for customers. So that's the first part, is the intellectual part of thinking, okay, what ingredients? And I try to stay away from traditional flavor profiles, right? For example, people have asked me, are you going to make a strawberry rhubarb? I'm like, no, because there's like 10,000 in the market already. And there's some people that make it really, really, really well. So these are their names. You probably want to go buy from them. So I've always been a little bit of a rebel. I kind of deviate from the normal path traditionally. And so that shows up in the kitchen. So it's the intellectual part, it's the cooking technique, it's the science behind that. It's getting all of your business components lined up, like if you're going to be an LLC versus an Inc. versus, S Corp, understanding all of those logistics. Yeah. The labeling, lab work, with each profile that I launch, I send it to the lab before I even, present it to the public to make sure that it's going to be shelf stable and that the pH and water activity and all that stuff is where it needs to be. So no one gets sick or dies from it. So just all of those logistical things, like just that you have to consider. And it's been really challenging this year because of the supply chain issues with the pandemic and everything. Like everything is kind of bottlenecking and slowing up. So constantly doing workarounds, that for sure.
Yeah. So maybe talk a little bit about that. So where can people typically get your preserves, and then what shifts have you had to make because of COVID and everything that's going on?
Wow. So the first initial shift that I made was that I stopped production back in March. I felt that at that time, and I probably was a little bit overboard because of my background in healthcare and biology, but at that time it wasn't really clear on how long COVID stuck around on surfaces and things like that. So I didn't want to risk, being in the kitchen and not realizing if, somebody potentially could have had COVID or if it was there. I just didn't want to risk that. And plus I'm a mom too. So my daughter was out of school. So I had to make a shift. I used to homeschool her years ago, so it wasn't too bad of a transition, but doing that. So I stopped production. That was the biggest pivot. And I just focused on staying engaged with customers on Instagram and Facebook, just giving them just different tips and pointers about life in general, using my other healthcare side and my life coaching side. And then I started back in the kitchen in November, end of September. So I've been back in the kitchen a couple months restocking. As far as where you can buy it, we are in Capital City Market in Lansing right now,
Okay.
and then online, and that's where I primarily sell. I currently have customers like in 22 states, so I ship across the nation.
Oh, excellent.
Mm-hmm.
So that's
Yeah.
perfect. That not only can the community of West Michigan or Michigan get your preserves, you ship it across the U.S.
Mm-hmm. I ship all over. Yes.
So
Mm-hmm.
cool. Yeah, and
Hopefully
so
internationally soon too. Hopefully I'll do some
oh, really?
international shipping as
Okay.
well. Yeah, we'll have to figure that out when things settle down.
Yes, that would
Yeah.
be awesome. Well,
Mm-hmm.
hopefully we end up having some viewers that are international. We do have some followers from Canada for FarmBridge, so
Oh,
that could be
great.
a really cool step for you. Yeah.
Yeah, I would love
So
that.
intermixed in there, you mentioned mom. So let's talk about that a little bit. So what
Okay.
does it look like to grow up with this food passion with your kids, like involving them in the kitchen, and then also, I mean, all the different hats that you have to wear because you're doing quite a lot and stuff too. And so I know you and I have talked about this as being business owners and trying to manage everything. And so wherever you want to start in there, but would love to learn the journey with your kids and involvement with your kids.
Okay. So I have one daughter. She's 8, going on 57. She's an old soul. Um, I try to involve her. She has a love for learning. Like that's one of her top strengths. And so she's very curious. And so I'm blessed and fortunate enough to see, have her look at it as something that she wants to learn versus as an inconvenience or as taking away from her time with mommy type of thing.
Yeah.
So she even helps with just ideas around packaging and names for flavor profiles, fruits and things like that. And sometimes we'll get in the kitchen and experiment. She actually had a business a couple of years ago. Yeah, she participated in a children's business fair in Ada, and she had a jam business. And I walked alongside her. She came up with all of her own profiles, kind of tested the recipes, and then she did really well and sold out. And she thinks she wants to do it again, but I told her this time around she has to, be a little bit more committed. It can't just be mommy doing like 90% of the work. And she's just like, oh yeah, this is great. And she has to pay me more. She paid me like $1 an hour to help her. So and I said, I'm just getting $1 an hour. And she was like, well, it's better than a penny. I was like, well, it is better than a penny, but it's still so.
Logically, I mean,
Yeah.
the way the kids work, right? It's so
Right.
funny you say that because it's like the thought of getting a pet, like a puppy as a kid, and then wanting to have the puppy and take care of the puppy, but then realize that you need to get up in the middle of the night, you need to feed the
Oh
puppy, and
my
so
gosh.
it's really the same, you're teaching responsibilities. And how awesome is that? I didn't know that there was a kids entrepreneur program like that in Ada.
Yeah, it didn't. They didn't have it this year because of COVID, but yeah, it's an annual business fair, and kids from all over, the state of Michigan actually come. I think last year they had maybe 100 kid vendors, so it's
Yeah.
awesome. It was so encouraging to see these little ones, passionate about the things that they were selling.
So cool. There was so the Holland Farmers Market actually hosted an expo a couple years ago. I don't know if they still do it or not. And it was a similar type of thing. But I brought the kids with me. I gave them an allotment of money, whatever to use, and walk around to these booths. And it was fascinating. Like there was a 13-year-old girl there that was making her own sugar scrubs. She had them in little glass jars and came from all natural-based products. And it was amazing. The kids loved it. They were inspired to do it. Like Kellen kept asking me, like, Dad, can I create something and go there? And I'm like, yeah, buddy, let's.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's so cool.
I think we underestimate the pliability of kids. I think we kind of put them in a box. And so I try to be very careful and intentional about that with my daughter, like to let her explore and not say, oh, you can't do that because you're only 8 years old. Well, why can't she? So I try to be mindful of not limiting her, so she can just explore and figure out what she wants to do. So
Yeah, and I would imagine that comes from the life coach side of you too, which is
For sure.
awesome. Because
Yeah.
I love talking about this stuff too, especially like the box concept, right? I mean, if you think about it, our entire life is surrounded by boxes. You know, some
Yep.
of the food we eat is in boxes. Our car is boxes. So it's if we can truly inject that type of creativity and their ability and motivation to get things done and create is exceptional. So I love that.
Thank you.
Yeah. So do they, besides that, like, are they in the kitchen with you cooking normally and stuff too? I know that that's kind of something you grew up
No, not she's been a couple times, but not since COVID. I just want to be really careful. I don't want it to be like a traumatic experience for her either. Like, oh my gosh, I was in the kitchen with my mom with a mask for like 9 hours, like she's like peeling pears. I want her memories to be pleasurable.
with. Yes.
So yeah, I've kind of steered away, but maybe she wants me to hire her to help with labels. So once I got everything packaged and sealed in the kitchen, so I may give her a little job this fall or winter to help me
Yeah.
with labeling everything up. So yeah.
Beautiful. Beautiful. So how do you manage all this? How do you do all this? How do you coach and consult in the healthcare industry and run a business? I mean, I know we're diving into the food producing business and connecting to growers, but I think I'd love to hear how you're able to do all this.
Man, a lot of deep cleansing breaths
Yeah.
and a schedule. I try to. I'm a little bit of a type A, so that's a disclaimer. So I have to have a blueprint for a schedule, and so
Yeah.
I try to make sure that when I look at my life, because we have 168 hours in a week, right? So I try to look at my life and all of the things that are important to me, and make sure that I first plug in sleep because that's important. So entrepreneurs, please, if you're out there, don't burn yourself to the ground, especially in the middle of a pandemic, because research shows that sleep is not only good for your mental state, but it's also good for immunity as well, right? If your sleep cycle is not well, you become immunocompromised fairly quickly. So that's one thing, getting my sleep in, and then just figuring out, okay, what are the things that are most important to me and how many hours do I want to allocate to those things this week, and kind of scheduling myself that way. And then it helps me, and I don't always hit the mark, but it helps me to see, oh, I said that I was going to spend this much time on my friendships this week, but I haven't talked to anybody because I've been in the kitchen. So then that reminds me that, okay, I need to get back to center and, connect with folks, or, call somebody or text or whatever I need to do. So that's how I kind of keep things on track. Have it visualized. I think visualizing it is very important.
Yes.
So.
Amazing tips. I mean, I said it in a little bit in there when you were going, but I'm guilty. I'm guilty of that, right? The lack of sleep, touch points, and the getting inundated with just busy work that's truly not impactful as much as connections and real life relationships are. So awesome. Awesome. I love that.
Thank you.
So in case people are just joining us, we talked a little bit about like the herbs that you use and the growers and some of the companies that you work with and distilleries. Can you tell us again one more time, like what type of herbs and or ingredients do you use for your preserves in case there are companies that are looking to work with you?
Oh, so many. So some of my top preserves herbs are rosemary, basil, lemongrass, sage. Just trying to run through some profiles here. Those are the top ones, but
Okay.
I'm open to exploring as well, right? I'll probably be looking in the late winter and early spring and adding some more profiles. So flavor profiles. So yeah, I'm open to exploring and seeing what people have.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wanted to make sure I mentioned that because if there's growers out there and are looking to, and I imagine that they are looking to work with local businesses, that they make sure they connect with you. And so I wanted to make sure that we covered that. Is there anything going on right now in your world, project-wise, initiatives, community things that you want to share or touch on?
Nothing project-wise right now. We are having a holiday sale, so you can go to luxepreserves.com, LUXE preserves.com.
I'll
and
check
we're
that.
selling gift boxes for the holiday season. But yeah, just restocking and stocking up right now. That's been a priority since I was out of production for so long. So
Cool. Yeah, I just chatted that in so that they
okay.
know that they can reach your website, and then the holiday gift box is awesome, which are coming up in a timely fashion too.
Yep.
So, well, cool. Well, thank you, Kimberly, for joining us.
Thank you.
Loved having you. This was a truly amazing experience for me because I know you and I have talked pretty frequently over the last year and a half or so, and this was an opportunity to connect again face to face. And
I was trying to remember when our first initial connection was. I didn't know if it was it seems like it was so far away because of everything that was going on. But you're right; it's probably like maybe a year or so, a little bit over a year.
Yeah, I just know I always like to provide some accolades or whatever to Ryan Bullhouse at the market, because he has been great in connecting everyone that works within the commercial kitchen there to Farmbridge, and hoping that we can help. And I love helping in that space. So that might have been the connection, but I'm truly grateful that it did happen. So
yeah, me too. Yeah, Ryan is amazing, and he's a wealth of knowledge. So very fortunate to have him around as a resource. Yeah, he's good people. So
good.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again for joining us. I want to thank everybody who watched and everybody that will watch, hopefully, following this recording. This is being saved and recorded live on Facebook and YouTube, Farmbridge channels. And then you can come back and access it at any time. If you are a producer or grower and you're looking to work with Kimberly, please reach out to her. I will put her social handles in the comment box, in addition to her website is there as well. And really grateful to have you on. And thanks again.
Thank you for having me. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Have a great afternoon.